Project Sapient is a podcast meant to engage our brothers and sisters in the law enforcement and military communities in conversations that we all know we need to have. All opinions you hear are our own, and they are protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. They are in no way reflect or meant to reflect the opinion of any specific agency, officer, or service member. Some opinions may be controversial. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy. All right, everyone. Project Sapient back. We are still coming in hot and heavy. I decided to go with an 80s theme type rock song today, so whatever. So obviously Jake's not here today. He's out doing rifle instructor type stuff and all sorts of secret squirrely things. So he's not here today, but once again, like to do a shout out to all our supporters, listeners out there, making us who we are, and especially our close friends over at AAA Police Supply. Don't forget, head over there at AAAPoliceSupply.com and use the coupon code Hybrid10 to get 10% off your entire order. And they have everything, whether it's duty gear, off-duty gear, whatever you're looking for, they have it. So head over there and get some gear. And before we kick off the show, I want to give a special shout out to very long time listener, Nelson, recently joined the Army. All right. He's heading to Fort Benning, and he's going to be doing 4 years active duty as an 11 Bravo, which is infantry. And we just want to wish him the best of luck, man. And definitely, if you're allowed to, I don't know what basics like these days. If you're allowed to, send us an email here and there. Let us know how you're doing. And yeah, man, very proud of you to see you, the man you've become. And man, it's going to be a journey. Enjoy it. So today we have a pretty cool guest, I guess we'll call her. Just a all-around badass. Her name is Bridget. She was a former police officer. She has experience. So this episode is going to be kind of a little different with the season of Speed, Surprise, Violence, and Action, but it kind of ties all in, all right, with the struggles within the profession and what goes on in the profession on the inside, because that's kind of the conversation I've always liked to have, is just an open, honest discussion about what it's like to be a cop, especially now. We've had Autumn on, we've had a female officer on who has spoken against some of her experiences, and same with Bridget. So she dealt with harassment, discrimination, retaliation, and hostile work environments. And she was the only female on the SWAT team. Along with her time on patrol and as an undercover narcotics investigator, she knows what it feels like to have no one to trust and feel defeated at every turn. So she started Lady Law Shield to help those feeling overwhelmed and frustrated by a seemingly unwinnable battle. I mean, you could tell that she's passionate about it. She facing the same, for those that face similar internal employment issues, especially being as a police officer. And, in the end, finding happiness, and regardless of the environment that you're in, she will help you kind of turn it around. But she also has 30 years in wellness, leadership, law enforcement, legal training and experience that she can leverage for a blueprint on how to be more comfortable, at ease, and more support in your overall life. So she is an attorney, which boo attorneys, but she is an attorney, former deputy sheriff. My wife's an attorney, so that's why I always boo attorneys no matter what, because it's always an argument. So she's a founder CEO of Lady Law Shield Law Firm and Protective Wellness. She's licensed to practice Texas, New York, Florida, LA. I mean, you got all kinds of clients across the country. So Bridget, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool to see kind of the taking a passion and kind of taking it outside the job, right? Versus kind of sticking with it through the job and dealing with, the number of harassments and whatever else that you dealt with as being a police officer. So what what I'm thinking is, what I'd like to do is kind of get started on when you first got on the job and what that was like for you.
Well, to be honest, I mean, you come in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you think I'm going to change the world. Nothing's ever going to happen to me. It won't get to me. It won't break me down. And then I've always said, if you ever hear anybody say, oh no, I think their job is fine, then my question will be, well, how long have you been on the job? Because the longer you're in it, like it's not, I always say, and I think everybody would agree that it's not a matter of if it will happen to you. It's a matter of when it happens to you. And so I graduated from University of Florida with a degree in environmental horticulture. And there's a long story about how that happened, but didn't want to work in that. And that last semester in the spring of 2000, and yes, I'm that old, didn't know what to do. I mean, I can't just go, like my specialty in horticulture was like growing like acres and acres of celery or acres and acres of poinsettias. And although I love plants and I love the idea of being outside for something versus being trapped in an office, that did not sound enticing to me. So had to figure out what to do with my life and decided, I joke and say that I watched G.I. Jane and thought that would be cool. And then I also always say, no disrespect to the SEALs, because that's legit. Although at the time, and this is also dating myself, although I joke around about that, in 2000, women weren't allowed to be on any type of special forces team. So I don't think that happened until around 2013. But anyway, I joke. That's not what I wanted to do. But I decided that FBI or DEA, something like that, would be something I wanted to do. And so I decided to be at the sheriff's office, the local level, to get there. And nobody in my family had ever been in law enforcement before. I lived in a very safe and secure middle income not necessarily suburbia, but just, safe little environments. So I'd never dealt with drugs. I'd never dealt with domestic violence. I'd never dealt with really any kind of crime. And so it was very different. And I decided I would do a couple ride-alongs. And that's what somebody I knew somebody at the sheriff's office. And he's like, hey, go do a ride-along. I contacted the sheriff's office, not even knowing if I should do sheriff or cop. I didn't know. City. Did a couple ride-alongs, certainly saw some domestic violence things in those night ride-alongs, same things I'd never seen before, but certainly not the worst things I would ever see. And then decided I would do that. But part of the reason I was interested in law enforcement is I was in my early 20s, I guess, at the time, and was into working out and thought, well, I don't know if I get older, will I be motivated to stay working out? So maybe if I find a job that requires me to be fit, it'll be easier. Well, fast forward to me, I'm now 49 years old and I work out, most of the time, 6 to 7 days a week in some way. So obviously now I know that it's not the job that makes you do it. But at the time, that was part of the reason why I got into law enforcement. And also, I'm a super big dork when it comes to right or wrong and the rule of law and following the laws and wanting to do. And I really think that's a very important part of a healthy and safe society. And I thought, that's cool. I can help with that. So yeah, I went to the sheriff's office really having no idea what I was getting into, but thinking that I did. And then, then the job happens.
Yeah. Reality hit you really quick once, especially after the academy, right? How long was your academy?
12 weeks, I want to say. Okay. June, July, August, maybe into September. And I took the state test in September. And I think I started September, October. Okay. I don't remember.
Okay. So you go through the academy, you're learning all this, information dump, literally, and I always go on a little soapbox where I say, you know what, that's not even enough training to know what you need to know. And especially, you're a lawyer, my wife's a lawyer. You go to law school for years to learn the practice and all of that. And for law enforcement, we have 6 months to cram constitutional law to state constitutional law to city codes to everything that you can put in your head, which you never remember in reality, especially when you go out on your first call. It's quite the kind of the shock to the system, especially after you graduate the academy and you go on that first official call after FTO. FTO, you got your little safety net here and there.
Yep.
And, then after that, once they cut you loose after, I don't know how long, my FTO, I think 12 weeks, right? It's typically 12 weeks and then they release you. Yeah. So 12 weeks and then, out on your own. And I was working right in the city of Boston, for the transit system. So it was very, very, very busy. And it's like, oh shit, here's my first call. Yeah. Now what? Yeah. So I don't know if you had the similar type of experience on your end.
It's very similar. Yeah. 3 months FTO or FTD for us for deputies. But my day one on my own was New Year's Day, 2001.
Ooh.
First call in the car by myself, all alone, was shots fired into an occupied home and the shooter's present. And I was for sure the closest person there. And it was in my zone, but still I was the closest. It's like, you have got to be kidding me. Now, thankfully, nobody was shot and the shooter was gone by the time I get there, even while I was and I was always really good at directions. So I didn't have to stop. I lived in the county. So, we had a big area, but we were in the city. And so it was not rural. It was, neighborhoods. But I knew I turned around right away. I knew where I was going. So I knew I was close. So I'm like, so you go on some calls sometime and you think, oh, please let the ambulance be there before me. Or just whatever the situation is. Like, if there's a dead person, please let the ambulance be there first.
Yeah.
But that was a pucker moment. But I said, by the time I got there, which was quick, shooter was not there and nobody had been shot. So it turned out to be an okay situation, but definitely that was a holy crap, here we go kind of moment.
Exactly. It humbles you real quick when reality hits you. So, everyone knows pretty much that, every cop, who listens, and we all know the sexy calls you go on and all that crap and all the stuff we do and, the narcotics game and the SWAT game and all that. But, I want to talk more internally within the sheriff's department, stuff that you dealt with kind of right off the bat, where you felt that sort of, I'll call it fake camaraderie, where you realize that most aren't your friends, and you might have a couple maybe good friends that you rely on, but in reality, even those two good couple friends may stab you in the back. So I'm just wondering, if your experiences in that, when did you start to realize that there's more to the job than just the job?
Well, and that's a good question. I was in patrol for a year, and then I went to the undercover narcotics unit because they didn't have any females. And so, definitely, and I've had a lot of conversations with people about this on podcasts or just in just conversations, is that, that's pretty quick. And yeah, it is. But there's obviously upsides to bringing somebody that the community doesn't know yet and right away into the narcotics unit. And then also not having a female, because you send a bunch of white dudes that look like they stepped out of the military to go buy
it's not going to work.
And they're not going to sell the white dudes with the Marine haircut the crack, but they'll sell it to me every time. Yeah. And I joke and say that, but it's the truth, that I bought crack for a living for 3 years. Yep. So within a year, I was in the narcotics unit. But within that first year, it was great, quote unquote, great and awful. I mean, great in the sense that I had a good sergeant. A couple of times, if I made a mistake, I remember one time I called him and said, "Sergeant, I made a mistake on my report. What do I do?" Or that if I didn't finish it and I typed it on my computer, this was still early days of computers. We did not have laptops in the car. Yeah. Also dating myself. This is back in the day of legit pages.
Yeah.
And, he's like, "Oh, no problem." Just real supportive. And I was always real inquisitive. I wanted to do DUIs. He let me do the training for DUI really right away. I mean, he was very supportive in training. And from that standpoint, and being a female, I didn't have any issues at all. And so really maybe it was kind of either I wasn't there long enough for that to go bad, or just got really lucky in that first shift, because I was the 3P to 3A. We called it the Bravo shift. I loved it. It was 90 miles an hour from the 3 o'clock when you start till, really kind of slows around midnight, depending on the day. But, I loved it. So, and then I went to the narcotics unit, and it was relatively small. But yeah, still it's like, this is great, gross, because it's crack world, and you go serve search warrants and people's houses and the filth and the whatever. It's just gross. And but very quickly start to see the stuff that, what made me sad about that is the kids who were growing up in that kind of environment. And where I worked, it just seemed like children protective CPS, Child Protective Services, just was worthless. Like you call it in and they never showed up. And I get that they're overworked, but it's just not fair for the kids. But then about 3 months after that, I made the SWAT team. So I tried out for SWAT around the time that I got put on the narcotics unit. A lot of the SWAT guys are also, and we had the undercover side of narcotics, and then we had the uniform side of narcotics. So if we were doing like buy bust, let's say, where we go in and buy the crack and we like, looks good on the bug, and I drive off and the uniform guys swoop in and arrest them. And then and everybody flees, like whatever.
Yeah.
So we worked hand in hand a lot. And especially, so majority of all of them, I mean, I would say the majority for sure of narcotics and the uniform side of it were also SWAT. We didn't have a full-time team. We were call out or part-time team.
Yep.
And then we trained a lot, and it was awesome. Yep. And I would say the wheels probably, I would say the wheels started coming off. It was consistent differences in how my life was versus slowly over time. At first, I'm like, you're right. I made a mistake. I'll do better. Okay. You write me up. You're right. I deserve that. Okay. Next time. Okay. You're right. I made a mistake. I'll take those 500 mountain climbers. I'll do better next time. And then finally, after about a year, I'm like, man, this is starting to really suck.
Yeah.
And it turned into, I just constant, like I just couldn't do anything right. I was just constantly being called. I mean, it literally would got to the point where I'd be sitting in my office in the narcotics unit trying to get something done. And one of the sergeants would come in and say, Bridget, can you come see me? I'm like, what now? Like, can I just get through a day without getting in trouble? Because I can't be the only one that's making mistakes. Yeah. And this is what I'll say to everybody out there. Yeah. Raise your hand if you've never made a mistake. Nobody's going to raise their hand. No. But just because you make a mistake doesn't mean that you need to be the one that's like, should you be written up? Maybe, but are they writing everybody up that makes that mistake? Yeah. Probably not. And anybody out there that if it's ringing a bell for you, what I'm saying, you know what I'm talking about is that, and it just got to that point where, I mean, to the point where at the end of the day, and we could certainly go into some stories, but I mean, I ended up going to my captain's office one day and saying, I want to be off SWAT and narcotics today, and I want day shift. And he's like, you got it, because he knew what was happening. And, normally you don't get day shift unless it's your turn.
Yeah.
Seniority and all, but he's like, you got it. You start Monday. And so, and then once I got to that point, it was horrible. I mean, yes, I'm tough. Yeah, I can be on SWAT team. But when I got to that point, I was literally had to pull over on the side of the car one day because I was crying so hard I couldn't even see. I couldn't drive. I couldn't see straight. And it was just such a gut punch. And yes, the ones where you thought you have friends until you don't. And it is a short list of people who will reach out when they think that you're somehow the pariah all of a sudden.
Yeah. I mean, it's very true. I mean, I talk to cops and retired cops across the country, and it's the same shit, no matter where you are, no matter how big the agency or how small the agency, it's like the same exact thing. And it's a culture that really, truly eats its own. And it's unbelievable to me. I was talking to my buddy on SWAT, his wife, who was a cop. She left after I think 3 or 4 years with kind of the similar type bullshit that she dealt with in terms of like, people would spread rumors around, about her, and people would say this and that and this and that. And it got to the point where she's like, I don't need this drama. And she ended up leaving the job. And I find that some of the hardest working cops are the ones that burn out the quickest, I'll call it. Because to people like us, like I'm a sergeant at my job, and I have a close to 20-year career, SWAT, narcotics, DEA task force, detectives, worked homicides, all kind. I was blessed to be able to work in all kinds of different units. And every single one of those types of units always had those cops that would backstab you in a heartbeat. And those are, and again, that's why I say we eat our own, and it's, to me, it's not needed. It really isn't. And to me, I come from a military background where, when I was deployed with my squad mates, my teammates, I mean, we had each other's backs like there's no tomorrow, even to this day. we still talk to each other, because it is a whole different type of brotherhood, on the military side when you've deployed and you have, that close connection with everybody, especially near-death experiences and shit like that. But policing is no different, really. Right. I mean, when you hit, you've hit houses, I've hit, when you hit a house and you have a close call, you're like, holy shit, and you would think that those sort of moments in this job where other cops would be like, man, we could die at any minute. Maybe I should, take care of each other, versus be at each other's throats. And, so I come from that kind of mindset where even if I yell at one of my patrol, which I don't really yell, I just talk because to me, yelling doesn't get you anywhere. And I'll yell at an asshole all day long, but my own officers, I'm not that type of guy. I will be firm but fair type of conversation. But at the same time, in the end, I also give advice, like mentoring, right? It's not about, to me as a sergeant, I'm not, sure, I can be the hammer at certain things, like, you know what, you fucked up and time to fix this, right? Or you fucked up and unfortunately I got to put this on paper now. And it's nothing really major shit, but here and there, whatever. But you're right. To me, it's like if I, as a leader, and we know plenty of leaders that are like that, if they concentrate on that one officer who makes a mistake after mistake after mistake, to me now, what is that officer known as? Right. And you know this, that's the officer that makes mistakes nonstop. And that's the officer that needs to be handholded. And that's the officer that can't do the job right. And to me, it's really, to me, unless you're like violating civil rights, like it's not a big deal. Right. Like we can fix shit. If you messed up a number on a form, whatever. Yeah, we'll fucking retype it. It doesn't matter to me. Like, no big deal. We'll fix it. Right. And unfortunately, like I said, this job just eats you alive internally more than externally. So I just want to back up for a second. When you said that your captain knew, what did he know what was going on? Is that why he just gave you whatever shift you wanted, or was he more like, was it like a caring type meeting? You know what I mean? Like, oh shit, you are getting a raw end of the deal. Let me move you around. And was that kind of conversation you had with the captain?
Well, That's also a good question. And I would say in that situation, I was lucky to have a very good captain. And so it was both, actually. And it was also the former, which is that, surely I had the thickest file for somebody who'd been there for 4.5 years of anybody at that time frame, because, and that's my personality. Part of the reason I felt like I needed to leave law enforcement is I don't know how to do this any other way. I am a person who's going to go big or go home. I'm not let me just show up for shift and then sit in my car for 10 hours like that. You kidding me? The shift is too long. You can stay busy and make the time go by. And I want to make some arrests and I want to find drugs in the car and I want to, all the things. Otherwise, and anyway, and so, and of course, getting on narcotics after 1 year, getting on SWAT team in less than a year and a half. That is an intense situation, but all the papering they were doing. And especially once that captain got into captain, because the first part of me being in, he was over HR for a while because they were trying to fix the hiring situation. And then I think it was when our patrol captain retired, then he moved into that role. And so he really did see every, crash report, disciplinary fault, whatever. He saw it all. Yeah. And so it really got to the point where I remember one time, so my SWAT team commander was also my narcotics lieutenant. And so we were doing, I think I got really sick. I remember one time it was a hostage situation and I was on perimeter for hours in the backyard in Florida in the summer. And remember, I didn't have bug spray and it was horrible. And I was getting sick. I could tell I was getting sick. And I think that was SWAT call out, maybe. I think I was on the back perimeter. So then that finished and I put all my SWAT gear back into my undercover narcotics car and then got back into the narcotics hat back on. And I was really sick. I said, hey, Lieutenant, or, hey, LT, I got to go. I'm going to go to the doctor in the morning. I just really feel like shit. Yeah. And he says, okay, well, just make sure you get the car ready for tomorrow because we were going to have a buy. Yeah. And he wanted the undercover stuff all set up. Well, we have a tech guy who does all that, but I was like, okay, I will. Well, I forgot. Like I mean, literally, I think I had like strep, and I think I had like not only strep. You know, this is gross, but your cops, you guys have all heard and seen worse. Like you're supposed to have like little white things.
Oh yeah, that's strep.
So like mine was gone. Mine were black. Like
Ooh,
it was.
bad.
I was just sick. And of course, I went to the doctor the next morning, got meds, went right back to work. Well, I get to work and I didn't set up the car.
Yeah.
And I think he wrote me up. I don't really remember because that was a lot happened. That happened to me on time. But one of the things I had to do was, I think that was the day where, as punishment, I had to take this RV that we had just confiscated when we got off shift at like midnight that night and go wash it. He's like, you got to go wash it. Okay. Well, I'd never driven an RV before in my life. And then the closest spot to watch an RV that big was way out in the country. Yeah. Well, two of my coworkers were like, we'll go with you and help, because otherwise it would have taken me till like 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Yeah. Well, the next morning I get in and there was in my box, I don't know if they do that anymore. Also probably dating myself. People actually used paper back in the day.
Yeah. Well, we all have mailboxes.
Okay, good. Yeah. That's still a thing.
Yeah,
good.
It's still a thing.
Yep. And so I get in, I have a crash report in my box, because apparently when I pulled out of the compound from driving an RV that I'd never driven in my life, I dinged the taillight and it broke the taillight. So they wrote me up for a crash report. And so my captain calls me and he's like, what is this? And so I explained to him what happened, not really trying to be like, well, that lieutenant's an asshole. Yeah. I just said, well, I did this. I forgot. I even said like I was sick. I went to the doctor. I just forgot. Yeah. And blah, blah, blah. So he ends up calling some of them in and saying, you guys got to ease up, like lay off Bridget for a little while. Like this is too much. So he knew what was happening. And then some other stuff happened after that. Like, I don't even remember. I mean, but one other time he called me in and he said, was there anything you want to tell me? And, like at that point I was like, what did I don't know. Yeah. Nothing. What do I do now? I don't know. Nope. I don't want to say anything. And at the time, and this is my biggest regret from law enforcement, is that I didn't say, as a matter of fact, there is something I want to talk to you about. Because I thought, well, if he knows, he's going to do something about it. But that's not how it works. And and you know as well as I know, you can suspect something might be happening on your shift, or maybe somebody's being harassed or discriminated. But unless they come report it to you, you're not going to say anything about it. Yep. You can go to them and say, hey, is everything all right? I saw it. You could even give an example. But unless they say, no, I want to report this, then you're just going to let it be for a while. Yeah. Anyway, so I didn't report it. And I should have. And so by the time I went to my captain and said, I'm effing done. I didn't say effing to him, but he said, because he knew. I mean, he knew I could have filled up a notebook of just crap. And my lieutenant and SWAT commander, God rest his soul, he's actually passed. And did he make mistakes? Yes. Did I wish bad things on him? Of course not. Mm-hmm. So I should have reported it. He was pretty explicit about it at times. Like, you're only here because they made me put you here. I mean, multiple times saying that. Like, I tried to report something one time saying, look, this is what happened. I tried to make it as generic as possible. Yep. This person did this. If I had done that, you would have eaten me alive and written me up for 6 months and blah, blah, blah. And like I said to him, I'm not asking for better treatment. I'm just asking for equal treatment. And he said, don't make it worse for yourself than it already is. And then went and told my whole team that I was trying to rat out one of my own teammates. Oh, Jesus. And they called me a snitch behind my back as we were on our way to execute a search warrant where I had done the undercover buys myself with the guy who sold me drugs, practically holding a rifle the whole time. Oh my. I mean, like, screw all of you. Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, by the time I got to that point, I was like, I'm going to give him, and I think I also knew by the fall of 2004, I knew I was going to be leaving to go to law school. I was taking the course to test for the LSAT. So by the time I left all that, I was done, but I was like giving them all, I wanted to be like, giving them all the middle finger and say, screw you, I'll show you. Yeah. But that being said, I never left saying, F all of law enforcement. No, I know what the job does to you. I know what the job internally can do to you. And I wanted to be able to help. And so that's what I do now, is I help people like me.
So that's a good way to transition into it. So what is it that you're doing now?
So I help people like me who are going through crap like that. And you're sitting there just taking it and taking it and taking it and thinking, Well, at first you think you're right, I made a mistake. And then you go through these things. Okay, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. Or it could get so bad that you could think, okay, well, maybe I'm the problem. And if you compound that with the fact, with what the job already does to you, because I started recognizing at that point that it changes who you are to have to suspect that everybody wants to kill you, or that everybody's bad, or that all the ugly, awful things you see. Or one of the worst things for me was a 2-year-old who found a gun while the adults were passed out, and ultimately he died. And I know for a fact that brain matter is gray because I saw it dripping. And so you don't ever unsee those kind of things, and that wears on you. Or just you just the negativity, the filth, the anger, the evil, and that's all you do. Or people hate you. I mean, I used to say it's not fair. Firefighters show up and you get clapped. And you cheered, and cops show up when you call and say, you call the cops and they show up, and then they're cussing at you the second you show up. So it's a tough life anyway. And then when you throw that you think your agency is coming after you on top of that, and that can be a very dangerous, negative, slippery slope to go down. And so, I mean, I've talked to one female, and this is not a female exclusive thing. I just got off the call with a guy from Alaska this morning who needs help because after 20 years, and he's on SWAT, and he's had all these things. He has some lieutenant that made up something about him being untruthful. And now he can't get a job after 20 years because now he's labeled as being a liar as a cop. And so this female in particular, she faced a lot of crap with this really bad agency. And when she complained about it, and over the 2 years it took to resolve it all, she attempted suicide 4 times because she went through it thinking, well, maybe I'm the problem. And if I remove myself from the problem goes away. And of course, that's not true at all. No. At all. I have a client I was helping out of Utah. He was on a Brady Giglio list, and he only hired me to do for a little bit for him, but then I was really worried about him. So I kept following up. And finally, I think I did finally call. He's not my client anymore. And I was calling him. And finally, he emailed me back. Oh, hey, Bridget, sorry, I'm okay. I can tell you were worried about me. I emailed him back. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I'm full on momming you at this point. Name, I won't say name. I was like, don't do this to me again. I was literally getting ready to start stalking you. I was going to call in a welfare check on you. Like, don't do this to me again. He's like, I'm sorry, but things are better. My point being that he said, no, I was in a really bad place. I said, I know you were in a bad place. Like you were making me, I was worried about you. And so that's why I do what I do so I help. Law enforcement officers are first responders. It's not exclusive to law enforcement. I remember talking to a guy who's a 30-year firefighter in tears one day because his chief was really doing bad things to him. I want you to have answers. I want you to come up with a plan, because as soon as you get that information, you start to feel like you're more in control of it. And it doesn't always mean you're filing a lawsuit. I say all the time, there are a lot of things you can do that have nothing with filing a lawsuit. And I help you figure out what that is. And I help you come up with a plan. And I help you put the words around what's right and what's wrong and start to do something about it. And even if I'm not the one that's doing it, if you can do it for yourself, like, here's your plan, go do it. And that's what I think is so important about dealing with this kind of problem. Because I also know, I mean, to me, it felt like, my world was coming crashing down around me. I didn't want to do anything else for the rest of my life. And then I made a choice, but I'm also a firm believer that life's too short. Do not put up with this kind of stuff. From leadership, I commend you on how you are a sergeant and a supervisor, because I know, because I'm a parent, the right thing to do is not always the easy thing to do. Like, to parent a child in the right way means that I have teenagers and they're not going to like me. And I sat down with my daughter one day recently. I said, look, my job is not to make you like me. My job is to make sure that you turn out to be a kind, independent, smart adult. And in the process, you're probably not going to like me. So as a supervisor, you're going to, point out to somebody, like, not even like constitutional law violations, like you say. I'm not saying, hey, don't shoot somebody when you shouldn't, obviously. I'm saying you just treated that person really bad. Why are you doing that? Are you sure you're doing it for the right reasons? Like, oh, this person made a mistake. Like, I get it, but make sure that if that's what you're going to do, then everybody who makes that mistake needs to be getting written up. Like, stop. Exactly. And yet everybody knows there'll be somebody, like couple of my clients and going through it, they're in Illinois, and like, everybody around me says, dude, keep your head down. You obviously have a target on your back. Like, everybody will know it. But then why doesn't anybody do anything about it? And it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that. And especially if your culture doesn't support that at all. But also, if you're a supervisor, there's something, and just do the right thing even when it's hard, because you could potentially be saving somebody's life in a way you never realized you would be doing that.
I mean, the skyrocketing of police suicides, right? It's an epidemic that no one likes to talk about, and it is real. And our access to firearms, obviously, it's right on our hip, so it's very, very easy. It's readily available. We've had cops here in Massachusetts in their cruisers, just blow their own heads off, or and 90%, 99% of it is because of the internal shit, right? The internal struggles, and whether they had a bad call, and then to me, you compound this, right? Give a quick example, dealing with a homicide, horrible scene, stabbing, blood all over the place and everything. So that in itself, traumatic patrol officers, these guys are brand new on the job. This is the first time they've ever handled a homicide type situation. And, then all of a sudden you start to hear how the bosses are coming down on them on a couple minor mistakes or mistakes that happened. And to me, I'm like, why, man? I get it. Evidentiary, certain procedures we have to do, but guide them, right? There's no need to hoot, holler, and to me, it's like an ego-driven type thing, where, I'm the lieutenant, I'm the captain, I'm the sergeant, this is the way you're going to do it, and to me, I've always developed this outside the box type mentality where, just because it tells you to do A, B, and C, guess what? I'll do C and D and E and get the job done that much quicker, so it's all about the experience and all about, how you do it. And, I see at times different police departments, even my own, when they literally supervisor put the target on someone's back. I'm like, well, why? I get it. This officer keeps messing up all the time, but what are we doing as supervisors to fix that? Are we mentoring him, or are we just yelling at him left and right? Right? Are we giving them, for me, I gave the specific officer a hope. My criminal procedure book said, hey, read through this. Make sure you understand it. If you have questions, call me, ask me. So to me, it's like, well, you got to be able to mentor these newer officers, especially these days, the new officers, because they really don't, policing has changed, and we all know that. And that's the thing is mentoring and teaching rather than, scolding and writing up constantly, and I'm pretty sure it sounds like, you're in agreement that, with your organization, that's kind of the way you approach it with these officers.
And I think, for the stuff that I see, and this particular wasn't one of my clients, but unfortunately, no, but there was a female out of Austin, I think it was last year, maybe about a year ago or so. Something had happened. I can't remember if it was a fight. Then she got hurt. She got hurt somehow. Maybe it was a traffic accident or something. She got really hurt. Came back to work too soon, because she came back with, I don't know if it was mental health issues or if it was a PTSD thing. I can't remember. But either way, when she came back to work, she was not the same. She started not showing up for shift. She'd never done that before. Late to shift. She'd never done that before. And instead of somebody saying wait, this is weird, she never did this before, they started writing her up. Is it technically a policy violation? Yes. But somebody from the 50,000 foot view, I know it's not always easy to do that, but from a hierarchy or chain of command standpoint, somebody up there please do that, because what ended up happening is write her up. She committed suicide and left 2 kids behind. Now I know I'm giving extreme examples, but my point being, or somebody has a critical incident and they come back and they're not the same. If you work with people long enough, you see those things. If you're the person who sees the paperwork and you think, this is weird, this person never had this many. Another one of my clients had a legit alcohol problem, which is not abnormal in law enforcement. Nope. And took the step of going to rehab. And that's a brave step, because then that's a label. You get a label. Took FMLA leave for drinking, came back, and his K9 sergeant said before he went out, if you do this again, I'm taking you, like, don't do this again. Or like, you basically like, you won't get your dog back. Okay. Well, you can't do that.
No,
That's
you
against the law. And I mean, within reason, you can't hold somebody's dog for a year and not work him. You know, you see what I mean? Short term. Well, then he came back to work. He ended up having to go back to rehab, and they immediately started taking actions to get rid of him. One of those was they falsified a record, which they shouldn't do that. I'm just going to tell everyone in all of law enforcement, don't ever falsify records, even if they're employment records. Yeah. But so he comes back, and then they start dinging him with IAs and IAs. Well, he starts drinking again. He ends up having a heart attack. Yeah. Now, here's what you can do. Should you be worried about somebody who has a legit, like a really bad drinking problem if they're in law enforcement? Yes. But here's an idea. How about try a fit for duty test and go get a medical opinion. Don't start subjecting someone to IAs unnecessarily. And his IAs were like things that were happening at home that didn't have anything to do with wasn't domestic violence. It wasn't anything like that. Well, of course, they ended up forcing him to leave. And so I keep giving these examples in context with talking with you, and I don't always talk about it from this perspective, but those are there ways for you to show concern, legitimately so, for somebody who carries a gun for a living, that you're an alcoholic? Yes, that's legitimate. Yeah. But there's a right and wrong way to do that. And unfortunately, I just think just don't understanding the ways to go about being a good leader or supervisor. And I'm not trying to be judgmental of everyone out there. Nobody ever trains you on that. You don't get training in leadership often enough or hardly ever in law enforcement. And that's unfortunate.
No, that's the thing. Like in the military, when I became a sergeant, you go to a school for that. When you become a staff sergeant, you go for a school for that. When you become a sergeant, like every rank of sergeant, you have to complete a leadership school for that rank before you're allowed to move on.
The military does that so better. And we're paramilitary. Yeah. I mean, you'd think just copy it. Fellas and ladies. I mean, and I'm not just saying this is a guy problem. I have cases where the offender is a female chief, and that just pisses me off. Yeah. Because why? Why would you do that? Yeah. I've had females discriminate females, black discriminate black. It's not always opposite. Yeah. It can be the same. It's still illegal if that's the reason why they're doing it. Yeah. And I also say all the time, it's not illegal to be a jerk. Unfortunately, I left law enforcement, went to the law firm world. One of my bosses was a real jerk. I remember like where I was in the hallway, and I'm like, wait a second. You're telling me I have to put up with this shit everywhere? This sucks. Yeah. And it was still a little bit less just because I think the personalities and the job and the powers that you have as a law enforcement officer just makes everything that much more potent. Yeah. But yeah, it's not exclusive to law enforcement, but because of everything you deal with in law enforcement, it makes those experiences feel that much more overwhelming. Yeah. I mean, it kind of like, when you deal with somebody you deal with all the time who's an alcoholic and turns violent, it's like the alcohol just makes it worse, it makes that individual worse. So it's just like law enforcement, right? When you're dealing with a traumatic event after traumatic event after traumatic event, and, the average American sees maybe 2 or 3 traumatic events throughout their entire lifetimes where a cop deals with 3 or 4 a week, or per shift cycle or however. The only profession outside of the medical profession where you can tell lots of stories about dead people. Yeah. I mean, like the time that I had to go to Taco Bell and drive the car. This is an embarrassing story. I'll tell you anyway. The guy died in the drive-through line at Taco Bell, and my job was to go get the car out of the drive-through. Oh, well, we might all not remember that, as I didn't in the moment, that when someone dies, they let go of everything inside of them. So I sat in the driver's seat to move the car. I can say I quickly got out of the car and then pushed it myself.
Did you burn your uniform after?
I was like, Sarge, I got to go get, I need a break. And he's like, why? Because they thought it was hilarious. So of course I got completely ribbed about it the next day. Rightly so. So. Yeah. So that was not fun. Yeah. And not to make light of the person that died in the drive-thru.
Well, I always say that we have a dark sense of humor for a reason. Yes. Right. I mean, we deal with so many dead bodies, whether, the elderly to young kids. Right. And, unfortunately, young kids, we are much more sensitive towards it. But, it's, we just have a weird sense of humor. That's a way of us releasing whatever we saw, Yeah. So to the civilian listeners, that's your typical cop, right? When we're at a sudden death scene, they're called, and just shit happens and we laugh about it, And,
no, I mean, there's a reason why you'll see cops laughing on a scene like that. It is not because they think it's funny.
No.
There is a compartmentalizing of it that happens, and because you got to make it through the scene, you can't leave.
No,
you can't leave because you think it's horrific. That's not an option.
One of my actually friends on the job tells me the story when he was first brand new, and I was a detective working the overdose death. And I didn't even remember this. He told me about the story, and he says, "Yeah, I remember. You were working the scene, whatever, and you're examining the body, and you turn around, me and you're talking for a second, and then the body, like, he exhaled, and this big bubble came out of his nose, and I look at him. I guess I took my hand to my gun. I said, "Hey, if he wakes up, he's a zombie, shoot him in the head." And, so we were laughing, but, it's like, yeah, that's us just being silly, just dealing with whatever we're dealing with, because it was weird to see that. We're like, oh, whoa,
that would be weird.
That's a weird one. But so how do people get a hold of you to get the help that they need, or if they're stuck, right, dealing with what they're dealing with? How do people get a hold of you?
The best way, so there's two quick, I try to make it quick just because I don't bore you or anyone else. LadyLawShield.com, you go to my website, and there's two ways there. One is if you need me, which I'm not like I said some other day, it's not like you have to brush your teeth each day and you got to buy toothpaste all the time because you always have to do that. You don't need somebody like me ever or very often. Yep. And so what I want is, number one is if you need me, you can book a call with me. Go to my website. There's right at the top of the homepage is a book a call. You can do that. But in the meantime, what I want you to do is I put out a newsletter and everybody's like, yeah, I don't want another email. But here's the point of my newsletter. I consider it tactical training for employment law, meaning like you're in the military, you know us, but anybody in law enforcement, you train for fighting or driving or definitely shooting. Because if you need to use that tool when the proverbial poop hits the fan, you're not going to be able to think about it, but you just want to be able to act without thinking about it. Like on SWAT team, if your gun jams, you want to be able to get that fixed so fast without even having to think about it so that you can use your gun again. Yep. So especially on SWAT, the practices and the drills of taking it apart and putting it back together and who's fastest and all that, so that you know how to do that without thinking about it when you need to in the moment, because your fingers aren't going to want to work. Yeah. So what I want is that you read these little snippets that I give you all the time, so that if this happens to you, your brain automatically right away knows, nope, this is not right. And here's what I need to do about it. And I don't mean I'm telling you to go burn the building down. No, I'm saying this is not right. Here's why it's not right. And here's what you can do about it. And say, it's kind of like saying, okay, Sarge, with all due respect, could we have a conversation? It's kind of like, I want you to have that right away response of knowing what to do right away, because I do not want this to be a problem that ends up festering. Because I promise I know from personal experience that it's all you can think about. It's all you can talk about. It ends up affecting how you concentrate on the job. I want you to not have that worry so that you can focus on making the right decisions at work and go home and have a conversation with your wife or your spouse or your dog that doesn't have anything to do with this problem, because you're going to do something about it. So go to my website. If you need me, book a call. If you don't, sign up for the newsletter. It's also all the social media links are there if you want to follow that instead. And help train yourself to know how to fight back when needed.
Well, that's actually, you kind of summed it up with some great advice and how to get to the website. Just being mindful of your time. I know you've got a couple more minutes. If you have one thing to tell, first responders, one piece of advice that they can take, for the night or whatever, what would that be?
Exercise. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously though, you will not be in this job forever. And I consider exercise to this. I'm going to get to my real piece of advice in a second, but I do always want to say that you will not be in this job forever. You will retire. Too much of your identity is tied up into the job. It's hard not to, just because of what the job is and how much power is tied into it, that you have the legal right to kill someone. You have the legal right to detain someone. Otherwise it's called false imprisonment. Or kidnapping. You have the legal right to handcuff, all that. Those are very powerful things. And do something where you're letting go of that, where your identity is not tied into it. But for me, even when I was in it, like, exercise was always super important to me. But also be healthy, be fit, so that when you retire, you can have a life that you can be mobile and enjoy. So sidebar advice, please exercise. Number 2 is, if any of this sounds somewhat familiar to you, or you think, you know what, I just see too much crap going on in my department around me, write it down. You must write it down. If you hire me, the very first thing I'm going to tell you to do is write down your story and send it to me. All the details, the names, whatever. Write it down for yourself. Put it on your phone. If you're a digital person, I still like paper. I've already dated myself in that way. So my point being, if any of it's, I don't care, maybe it started two years ago or 10 years ago for you, write it down, because you're not going to remember it all. I'm going to need it anyway if I'm going to help you. You have to write down that story. So just keep a diary of things that are happening, so that if you need it, and also that really helps you look at it from a non-emotional standpoint, or somebody else can later, to say, it's like you're writing a report. He pulled a gun, he pulled the trigger, she died. That you got to get the facts out. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, that's, again, superb advice. I agree with the exercise part. Exercise, workout, it's very, very important in this job to keep yourself fit, both mentally and physically. So, you can't deny your mind and just work your body. You got to work both. Right. So I 100% agree with that. And your second piece of advice, yes, write everything down. Just tell the story. And so one thing I'll definitely add on the show notes, your website. That way people can click and go right to your website to reach out to you. Well, Bridget, thank you for coming on. It's was a very supreme pleasure to have you on, and great conversation. If you want to hang up for just a second while I do a quick closeout, and then we'll talk offline just for a quick minute. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, that was Bridget, and what a great story and great second mission she found for herself. She did great job, and she does great work for the first responder community, and everyone should just reach out to her. And again, we wouldn't be here without our supporters and sponsors like AAA Police Supply. Head to their website. Make sure you head over there and use Hybrid 10 on your order for everything that is law enforcement. Everybody, stay safe and stay sapient.